and be authorized to sit for the purposes of questioning witnesses during this hearing.
Without objection.
Thank you very much. Let me ask, it has to do with performance and results. Mr. Stana, in your written testimony on page 12, you explained that Border Patrol has measured performance based on the Government Performance and Results Act of 1993, the KIPRA, and that DHS is in the process of developing measures that reflect a more quantitative methodology to measure performance. But keep in mind, I assume when you wrote this, this was before we passed the new law, the law that I passed dealing with the modernization and performance results that we passed back in December of this last year, which means that the measures are going to be more focused on results at the end. Could you both, this is both to Mr. Fisher and Mr. Stana, are we measuring more activity than results? In other words, like you said, if we give you X amount of dollars, what are we getting for those dollars? How much have we spent for the border? What was it, about $3 billion?
Yeah, about over three.
Over $3 billion. What's the apprehension for that period?
Well, and that's the rub. If you look at the latest performance statistics that were just issued this week, and I know the Border Patrol is working on revising this, and we've spoken to their people, and they understand the shortcomings of just having these kinds of things. But what you have is a numerator here. You have a number of apprehensions, for example, but you don't know how many people might have been there to apprehend, how many crossers were there. When you watch a baseball game, they put a batting average up, and you kind of judge how many hits you get for how many at-bats. Here, what you're getting is just the number of hits. You also have things like number of joint operations conducted, and that's a good measure, but that's an activity measure. It doesn't tell you the results of those joint operations. Percent of detected conventional aircraft. That's not a bad measure, but that's not the only measure. For example, Mr. Thompson mentioned the SBI net deployments. We were just down there last week, and we witnessed 3 ultralights coming across the border, and one buzzed the Tucson airport, we understand. And they never found anything more than that because they left camera range and the UAV was otherwise occupied, and they couldn't get a beat on it. So here's another getaway. So you have to have the numerator and the denominator to judge performance, not just the activity indicated by the numerator.
Right. And Mr. Fisher, I would ask you, and I assume y'all talk. I mean, I hope this is not the only time that y'all talk here, but one of my things on performance, and I did my dissertation on this, so I'm a big believer on this, is that a lot of times government agencies measure activity, and that's different from measuring the actual result that you want to get at the end. What's your take on this? Are you measuring? I'm sure you're going to say no, but what do you think you're measuring right now? And give us some examples of measuring that is the control, the prevention of undocumented persons coming in, and of course the illegal contraband. What are your measures of results?
Yeah, Congressman, I would also agree with you that we do not use activity and accomplishment synonymously, because I think when you look and try to differentiate, as we have over the years, outputs versus outcomes, we recognize that we're not just going to count things for the sake of counting them. I'll give you some examples. Apprehensions, for instance. The numbers of apprehensions, again, depending upon what the outcome is, in a particular area where we're trying to gain operational control, going back to the terminology, where we are experiencing high levels of illegal activity between the ports of entry, we want to measure both in terms of the detected entries and the apprehensions, so that one is we have a better understanding of what those detected entries are, and we would use technology and Border Patrol agents deployed across the border, starting in the urban areas and moving our way out to the rural and remote, and so that we have a better confidence level that based on those deployments, we do have a better sense of what the denominator is.
Mr. Fisher, I know my time is over, and I got to ask a quick question of the mayor, but for the sake of time, could you work with the chairwoman, ourselves, the committee, and the staff on, we want to look at the measures. I think we ought to look at the measures to see how much is activity and how much is really results-oriented, and if y'all can do that as soon as possible. If you would just bear with me, just a quick question. Mayor, look, one of the problems we have with I know we got issues, that the border is not perfect like any other place. But one of the things is when the media keeps talking about this and this, if you talk to hospitals, it's hard to get doctors down there because they're saying, we don't want to take our families down there because of what's happening. You know, they don't make that distinguish, they don't distinguish between the border and on the U.S. side and the Mexican side. Talk to university professors or the, chancellors and the presidents, it's hard to get them. What is the crime rate? Can you talk about, for example, the crime rate in Laredo that you're familiar in other places? I gave you some numbers that in the last 30 years, border counties, crime rate has gone down. There's spikes like anything else, but give us a little bit of your sense of security.
Absolutely, Congressman. I think one of the key things in Laredo that what we have installed is a spirit of cooperation between local, county, state, and federal agencies, everyone working together that sends a strong message to the other side. Now, we had 8 homicides in Laredo. Most all of them have been solved. We have a decrease of at least 20% in stolen cars going south. We also had somewhat of a 30% increase in violent crime. But I think the key has to be in ensuring that we do our part. And you know that the police department and the sheriff's department, we're all working together to try to confiscate those weapons that are going south, those stolen cars that are going south, and of course the money. Those stolen cars and those weapons are contributing to the delinquency and to the cartels. So we have to ensure that we get the resources to be able to stop it, stop those weapons from going south.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Following protocol, I now recognize the ranking minority member of the full committee, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Chief, it's good to see you again. Facts about it, all 3 of the witnesses.